So a few months back, I wrote an article about a question that I get asked a lot, especially from people looking to move to Spain. I often get asked, do Spanish people speak English? Is it possible for me to move to Spain without speaking Spanish? And all of these to me are legit questions because I had the same concern when I moved to Spain. And when someone left a comment on a post that I wrote, I'll put a link below, and they said that my response perpetuated the truth that Anglophones are lazy, refusing to integrate and expecting others to speak their language. They called it despicable that this article even encourages immigrants to move to Spain without knowing the language. So let's break this down. I think that's an interesting comment for us to talk about today. So let me tell you a bit more about my Spanish level when I moved to Spain and how it affected my experience. So my Spanish when I moved to Spain was non-existent. So I had tried to learn Spanish for a few months before with Duolingo, but I just never got around to it. So when I moved to Spain, I had a job lined up. And this job was in English. So that meant that this was kind of my saving grace because I knew that I would be able to work in a language that I was comfortable with. But everyday life was in Spanish. Again, to set the scene, I am based in Barcelona. So when thinking about my own experience when it comes to moving to Spain without speaking Spanish, it definitely had some negative impact. I mean, when you think about everyday life, I remember me, like the first time I had to take the metro, how stressed out I was. I once had to get, my teeth cleaned up, and I just wasn't even sure how to go to the reception. Like I was practicing to say, I have an appointment at this time because I didn't know how to say the numbers. So it was stressed out. So definitely, and in this article I mentioned you can move to Spain without knowing Spanish because, well, initially I don't think this should be a blocker, but it's true that in your everyday life it can be. However, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to try, it won't be a problem forever. But I wouldn't let that stop you from moving to Spain. So the question is, can you actually live in Spain without speaking Spanish, and what's realistic? So the answer, so in this article I was saying that yes, it's possible. Was I saying that you should come to Spain without planning on learning Spanish? No, I think you should come to Spain with an open mind. You should be willing to learn Spanish because honestly, it depends where you live. I currently live in Barcelona, so fair enough, you can get by. But for example, right now, recording from a very small village in Segovia, and if I were to live here without speaking Spanish, and actually when I came in this village a few months back without speaking Spanish, it was very difficult. I remember crying all the time because nobody could understand me. And in those small villages, I mean, I wasn't expecting people to speak English, but it's true that it was tough for me to not be able to speak English to anybody. So it really depends where in Spain you're planning to move, but your long-term plan should always be to learn Spanish. But not knowing Spanish should not stop you from moving to Spain, and you're not lazy for coming to Spain and not speaking the language. Because what I found personally, that the best way for me to learn Spanish was to be in the country, because until I was in Spain, until I was confronted to the day-to-day of, people asking me things, me not being answered, being blocked when it came to paperwork, bureaucracy, trying to do like basic things, going to the doctor, explaining my symptoms, that frustration gave me the drive to learn Spanish. But back then, when I lived in London before moving to Barcelona, like that frustration wasn't there. I was doing Duolingo, I was happy because every day I was doing like 30 minutes, but it wouldn't stick. So when you live in Spain, I think it's easier to learn Spanish because then you can really immerse yourself. I started watching TV from day one. This was super helpful. Then you start understanding, what's culturally relevant. Maybe there's podcasts, maybe there's songs, maybe there's movies. And as you spend more time in Spain, and you surround yourself with Spanish people, just listening, like don't undermine how much you absorb when you're listening. Sometimes I think the first phase of learning a language is always that way. So first, now I have a young kid, he's 1, and it's super interesting to see him, how much he's like a sponge. He absorbs everything. And then from time to time, I can tell that there are words that he starts understanding. It takes time, but I think it's the same system for us adults. So at first, you're just going to be listening, and perhaps in the first couple of months, like sentences seems like if you're interacting with a group of people, everyone is talking at the same time, just keep listening and you will eventually, you'll get it. So I think it's realistic to move to Spain without Spanish. Phrases that everyone should learn. So, basics or daily, like greetings, number, asking for help, how to book an appointment. English should be your basics. With this, you can get by, for medical appointment, if you're looking to rent a place, buy a place, or again, there's many apps that you guys are aware of, Google Translate, Duolingo, Italki, but the best way to learn is listening. It's just to observe, immerse yourself, listen to people on the tube. Like I was eavesdropping all the time. Check out kids' books. I think it's a good way to learn. If you have a notebook, take down notes of words, sentences, saying that you're enjoying, so that you can retain it. Now, when thinking about moving to Spain, I think something that's interesting to talk about is whether integration really is just about the language, or if there's more to it. Language, it does matter, but at the end of the day, your attitude is also very important. If you're respectful, if you're curious, and don't worry about not speaking fluent Spanish, and don't worry about the grammar. Don't get wrapped up about those small things. Just try, just say words, just use your hands gesture. All of this comes a long way. And local, they really appreciate the effort. So just go for it. Honestly, my honest advice to someone who's nervous about moving to Spain without speaking Spanish is don't let the fear stop you. You don't need to be fluent to start. You're not lazy for not knowing Spanish from the get-go. Of course, you cannot expect for everyone to speak English if that's the language that you speak. I definitely know that there's places like Barcelona and Madrid where many people who speak English, which make it maybe easier, but this is not something you should expect. You should be realistic, like set up small realistic goals, 10 phrases a week or 1 word a day. Don't overwhelm yourself. And if that's the only thing that's stopping you, hopefully this video is the sign that you needed, that you can do it. I now been living in Spain for 7 years. I wouldn't call myself fluent because it sounds a bit, but I now, in the job that I'm working at, I went from doing everything like every day, doing like kind of meetings all in English, to now being able to do those meetings in Spanish, to be able to understand conversation, to interact, to be in my everyday life, to go to the doctor, to make myself understood. Is my Spanish perfect? No. Is it good enough? Is it good? Strong enough for me to feel comfortable to communicate my whatever I want to say? Yes. And I think that's the most important. So again, if that's the sign that you need it, go for it, and don't let fear stop you from doing anything, especially when it comes to moving to Spain, because it might turn out to be the best experience that you ever get to live.